Hey guys, and welcome back to the ASX Investor channel, and welcome to another CEO interview. Today, we're diving back into the lithium space on a milestone day for the Vulcan Energy story. ASX VUL is developing their Zero Carbon Lithium project in Germany, and they've just announced that one of the leading global automakers, Stellantis, who have got a range of household name brands underneath their banner, has invested into the Vulcan Energy opportunity. It's obviously a significant validation for the mission, but it opens up a range of different strategic doors as well. And we're looking forward to unpacking the story with Dr. Francis Wedin, the CEO and Managing Director.
Welcome to the channel and enjoy.
Francis, welcome back to the channel.
Well, thanks. And thanks very much for having me on again.
It's always a pleasure. I guess before we unpack the actual Stellantis news, there's a lot to discuss there, but did you want to just give that overview of the Vulcan Energy story and where are you currently positioned for those who might be new to it?
Yeah, thank you. So Vulcan Energy is an integrated renewable energy and lithium chemicals company. So we are already producing renewable energy from our geothermal plants in southwest Germany, in the Upper Rhine Valley geothermal lithium brine field. So we have an operating commercial plant there. What we're aiming to do is we're aiming to build out much larger scale renewable energy generation, but from the same source, also lithium production as well. So we've defined the largest lithium resource in Europe in our field. We've had a pilot plant operating at our geothermal plant for over a year now, and essentially using sorption, which has been used commercially for over a couple of decades now in the lithium industry, and using the heat and the power from the renewable energy operations that we run, we aim to produce lithium with a zero carbon footprint, hence the Zero Carbon Lithium business. So this is a world first. It will also have zero fossil fuels, which is also a world first in the production of lithium. And I guess sort of fast forward to what we're doing now, we're fully sold out for our first 5 years of lithium production, starting essentially from the second half of this decade, 2025 onwards. We are fully sold out to Stellantis, Volkswagen, Renault, Umicore, and LG Energy Solution. We have a very large team in Germany, which is growing quickly by the day, about 130 strong, doubling, in the next few months. So we're getting into more of that development phase. We're doing our DFS at the moment, building a demonstration plant, and aiming to enter into production by late 2024.
Very exciting times. It's obviously attracting a lot of attention as well with the story. That brings us to today's announcement. Stellantis, a 50 million euro equity investment. I was reading some of the discussion around it, and it's the first upstream investment in a listed lithium company by a top tier automaker, which is significant. Extends the binding offtake as well. Did you want to give that overview of who is Stellantis? I've got a range of household brands underneath their banner and why it's so important to you as well.
Yeah, sure. So Stellantis is a top 5 global automaker. They are a group of brands, so they cover 14 brands, including Peugeot, Citroën, Opel, Vauxhall, Fiat, Chrysler, Jeep, to name but a few. Significantly for us, they include the Opel brand, which has their one of the main factories in the same state as us, in Rheinland-Pfalz, so they're just up the road from us in Kaiserslautern. And so out of our customers, out of our Offtake customers, they are the closest one, sort of distance-wise, really just a few k's up the road. They're building a gigafactory there with ACC. So for a very large local employer to be investing in their backyard, investing in our projects after a long diligence process, that's really significant for us from a strategic perspective. Now that they've become a substantial shareholder in Vulcan. And it's a real tick of approval, I think, for what the team is doing at Vulcan as well, following an extensive DD process as well. The funds will be used towards our development drilling, which should commence early next year, essentially starting from that producing core of the field where we're producing geothermal energy already, and then just stepping out from there north and south in the fields to expand geothermal energy and then lithium production as well. So we're well funded now with this investment from Stellantis, but critically, as you say, we've got this investment from this automaker, which covers really some of the main European brands, including this very local brand, which is very important to the local economy.
And it's an interesting one as well. Of course, we know about the increasing demand, but the actual model of tier one automakers or automakers investing into the upstream capacity, it's not often been the conventional way. Can you talk about how some of those discussions have played out and why the automotive manufacturers are so interested in going through this route now?
Sure. So there was an article in The Economist recently which talked about this shift in the way automakers are operating. So from essentially outsourcing pretty much everything to really gaining control again, a bit like Ford's did with rubber and oil when they first started producing cars on a mass scale with the Model T over a century ago. Automakers are seeing that basically the battery is the engine of the vehicles of today. The battery is made up of critical raw materials which are in short supply, and really their future as major automakers is dependent on being able to source these raw materials. So I think the Economist article flagged, and Elon Musk flagged as well via a tweet that we're going to see much more integration upstream, particularly in the lithium space. And lo and behold, now we're seeing the first integration upstream by a major automaker, which was into Vulcan. So we're very fortunate and very pleased, obviously, that we're the first ones to receive such an investment. I think this will be the first of many, both for ourselves. I think we'll see sort of close integration going forwards, but also for some of the key developers in the space. I think this is a trend. This is the start of a trend now for increasing investment upstream into the lithium space by the major automakers.
And really, this Stellantis news builds off all of the other news that you've already got in terms of off-takers. You've really got a blue chip assortment there, from Renault to Stellantis, Volkswagen, Umicore, LGES. Can you talk about the off-takers that have come into place and the strategic rationale between how you've assembled them and what that will really unlock now as you move towards development and then production?
Sure. So we've been very focused really on off-takers that are focused on the European markets. We see the way the world is going, much more deglobalized markets in these supply chains. So really we're positioning ourselves to be a major supplier into the European markets. The European market for lithium, albeit off a small base, but it's the fastest growing in the world. It has zero local supply, and that's what we're trying to change. So there's really an enormous demand for lithium building in Europe. There's going to be over a terawatt hour of battery production by 2030, according to forecasts. That's essentially over 1 million tons of lithium chemicals per annum. So a lot more than what we can produce, a lot more than what Europe can produce. But we see ourselves as a critical part of Europe starting to gain that independence of supply chain. And so we picked European focused, tier one off-takers. So obviously, largest company in Germany, Volkswagen, one of the largest automakers in the world, Stellantis, Renault obviously speaks for itself. Umicore is a cathode manufacturer, so one of Europe's main cathode manufacturers that actually process this product directly. And LG Energy Solutions, second largest EV battery manufacturer in the world, not European, but European focused, with plants in Europe and growing those plants increasingly as well. So that's been our strategy, and that will continue to be our strategy. Our future growth really will be in and around the Upper Rhine Valley brine field. We will look also at expanding onto the French side, and we have an Italian project as well, which we're also looking at potentially developing as well. So really around that sort of Central European area.
There's a lot going on the lithium side as well, but of course you've got the geothermal component as well. You've actually got commercially operating geothermal side now. We know about the energy crisis and everything else that's been playing out. How do you envisage Vulcan really feeding into that energy mix moving forward over the next decade and beyond?
So it's a real enabler for us. It sounds cynical, but for better or for worse, the tragic events in Ukraine have really accelerated things for us on the energy front. So we're developing geothermal projects, and basically the lithium is a byproduct, albeit revenue-wise it's definitely the other way around. But the geothermal basically has to come first, and critically, what the geothermal provides is renewable heating for local communities. And we're seeing now, I mean, we're entering into a situation where they're talking about very seriously about gas rationing in Germany because of the situation with Russia and Ukraine. Obviously, the plan is to get off Russian gas within a couple of years, but even in the shorter term, getting off Russian gas as much as possible. And you know that is, I mean, it's music to our ears, to be honest, because we can be cost competitive with gas, basically provide renewable heating from our geothermal for a lot of the same uses. So for domestic and industrial heating purposes via heating grids. So what that means is that really unlocks many areas for us that perhaps would have progressed slower on sort of the permitting front. And it really provides a lot of backing at a local level, which is critical for a large infrastructure project like this. So we're seeing, we announced a few days ago, actually, you know, we're seeing these local city councils increasingly come out in favour of geothermal, and as a result of, you know, the lithium, planned lithium production as well. So I think that's a trend that we'll see increasingly across the region, which, you know, helps decarbonisation, helps the climate, helps energy security, and helps critical raw material security as well. So it's a win-win for everyone.
It's an interesting one to hear that. And obviously the demand is there on both sides. I know that you've released your PFS that had 40,000 tonne per annum. You've got a really scalable resource. And as you move towards a DFS, how are you thinking about scale and the potential opportunity to increase that throughput as demand grows?
We're certainly looking to increase our production. I obviously can't say by how much just yet, but we're working on it. Essentially, I mean, we see the field as being very, very large and very scalable. So we recently announced the addition of a number of additional licenses as well. We will be doing resource updates soon as well to add more resource there. But it's already a very large resource. So effectively, it's really how much capital you want to put up and when, and how you want to stage that in terms of how big you want to get. It's not really resource constrained. It's more just, you know, deployment of capital constrained, if you like. So we're looking at that. We're looking, I guess, how quickly we can grow sensibly. We don't want to sort of come out with something too big that's just unachievable. But we're certainly looking at larger production ambitions in the DFS.
So all of the building block seems in place there. You've got the resource, you've got the investment, the offtakes are in place now. What are those key catalysts as you move towards production that investors should really look for?
So some key things that we're working on. So we are in discussions with other strategic players in the supply chain. There's the strength in numbers with different areas of expertise. So we are looking at some closer integration with strategics, and I think in the coming months we'll see sort of more discussion around that. We are looking at doing a resource update and including some of those additional licenses that we've added. So that will be something to watch out for. There will be updates on a demonstration plant which we're building. So we have a pilot plant which has been operating for over a year, but the demonstration plant is a much bigger piece of kit. So we'll be providing updates on that in the near future, as well as that as the build on that progresses and that enters into commissioning and production. Obviously, the definitive feasibility study will be a big one towards the end of the year. And in the meantime, we are also looking at expanding into more and more into places like France and Italy as well. So and that could involve some more strategic tie-ups. So there's plenty going on basically in the space sort of over the next 6 months.
A lot of irons in the fire there for Vulcan. I did want to just take that step back quickly. You're obviously having a lot of different discussions with automakers, stakeholders on the regulatory front. There's a lot of noise at the moment in the lithium space. Just wanted to hear your reflections internally. How are you guys perceiving the lithium space at the moment and the outlook moving forward as well?
I mean, I think it's basically just not getting distracted by the noise. You know, it's very easy to get carried away when the market is very hot. And it's sort of easy to get carried away with, you know, the other way when the market is falling on the equity side, as it has been recently. we take a longer term view. So, I mean, we're looking at entering into production, in more than sort of 2 years away, and really sort of ramping up that second half of the decade, sort of 2025 onwards. I guess we're looking at, lithium in 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And I don't think there's any other space which has the growth potential, and really that supply demand tightness that lithium has. Really, I think if you look at a sensible consensus of analyst forecasts, there is incredible demand, which is growing by the day, and there is just not enough supply that is due to come on stream, even if all projects are executed on time and on budget, which they never are. We're seeing this really on the customer front as well. I mean, our offtake customers, plus the ones we couldn't fit in as well, because we're fully sold out, they all want more supply. If we could produce more, they would take it. And I think that speaks volumes in terms of the supply demand tightness over the coming years. So I think, the lithium price is still strong. Once again, I wouldn't look too closely at the lithium price now. I would just think, take a longer term view in terms of what sectors, what critical raw materials really have the supply demand thematic that and strength that lithium does. And I don't think there's many others out there in the next sort of 5-10 years.
That is the Vulcan Energy story. There's a range of tailwinds continuing on. It's a milestone day, so congratulations. I'm sure you and your team are going to be celebrating quickly, but then continuing on to the next one. So Dr. Francis Wedin, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me on. Cheers.